Welcome to Binge Guide the Next Show. I'm Andrew, and with me today is Victoria.
Hey everybody, Victoria here.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this new film, Warfare.
Yeah, Warfare.
Directed by Alex Garland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Ray Mendoza. And this movie's got a lot of buzz already. People are talking, is this the next big thing? What are we all going to be watching?
Our next show.
Exactly. And it seems like a very different kind of war movie. We've seen some early reactions, some early insights, and we want to sort of unpack all that for you and give you an idea of what to expect.
Yeah, this isn't going to be your typical, Hollywood war movie.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it at all.
Yeah.
So let's just get into the basic premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
The movie drops us right into this mission.
Okay.
2006, Ramadi, Iraq. And it centers on these 13 Navy SEALs
13?
who are holed up in this apartment building.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the thing that I think is really interesting and sort of unique about this is that it's not just, inspired by a true story. It is really going out of its way to be based on this actual mission.
Yeah. This mission that happened in 2006 with co-director Ray Mendoza and his platoon.
Exactly. And they keep saying everything is based on memory.
And that really kind of makes you think about, the subjectivity of memory. How reliable is it? How's it been affected by time and trauma?
That's such a good point, because you think about, especially with something as intense as combat, how much of this can we really take as, an objective historical record versus, this is how these people remember it.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like the film's timeline is really key here, because we're hearing about this 95-minute concurrent runtime. So it's matching the actual duration of this period. No time jumps, no condensed sequences, just real time as it happened.
Yeah, which, as a viewer, that's meant to build that tension. You're really there in the moment with them.
Yeah, you're trapped in this situation.
Totally.
Along with them.
And I think for Garland, who's known for movies like, Civil War, it sounds like he was really drawn to this idea of recreating something real as accurately as possible, and then Mendoza having this story that he wanted to tell just, worked out perfectly.
It's almost like fate, right? These two coming together, both with this this goal to be as accurate as possible, or at least to recreate these events as they remember them happening.
It's not just explosions, it's really, how memory plays a part in storytelling.
Right, and that kind of leads into this whole conversation about realism and authenticity that's surrounding this film.
Yeah.
Because we keep hearing that it's not going to be that typical glossy, Hollywood ate-up war movie.
Yeah.
That we've maybe come to expect.
And filmmaker Justin Garza was talking about how this hasn't been, quote, Hollywood ate up.
I like that. And I think some of the details we're hearing really underscore that, right? Like soldiers swatting flies, chewing tobacco, even urinating in bottles, the stuff that you don't normally see in war movies.
It's like those everyday things that you would never see in a normal war movie, which I think is what they're going for.
The unglamorous reality of it.
Exactly.
Right, like they're not shying away from that. And Garland has actually said that the film is, quote, a product of honesty. It's unfiltered, unflinching, and just truthful. Which is a pretty bold statement.
It is, yeah. And Mendoza has been really upfront about this, too. He wanted to show the texture of war, what it's actually like, not a sanitized version.
But they didn't just rely on Mendoza's memories for this.
No. They actually worked with multiple people who were there, during that mission in 2006.
To get as many different perspectives as possible.
To try to be as accurate as possible.
And I think that speaks to their awareness of, how memory works, how it can be affected by time, stress, trauma.
And concussions. I mean, these guys were, in combat. It must have been very intense.
Exactly. And, they kind of makes you think, what does it even mean for a film to be truthful when it's based on something as potentially unreliable as memory?
Right. But I think Mendoza also wanted to find the language to convey not just the physical, reality of it all, but also the emotional and even spiritual impact.
And it sounds like he was very hands-on in trying to achieve that, like he was really an active presence on set.
Yeah, Garland was talking about how he was an incredible teacher, not just helping the actors with, how to handle a weapon, but really how to embody those roles authentically.
So, he was really working with them to get to the heart of those experiences.
Totally.
Which is so important.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as a viewer, you can really tell the difference, right? When someone who's been there, helping shape the performance.
Totally. So moving on, it's not just about the tactical elements of this mission, right? it sounds like there's also a real focus on the human element and the emotional impact of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, there's an Iraqi family that's in this apartment building with the troops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that obviously adds a whole other layer of, tension and complexity to the situation.
And the mechanics of extraction, of getting everybody out of there safely, that's a big part of this movie as well.
Yeah, and we keep hearing that there's no glamour in this film.
This is not your typical war hero story.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
Charles Melton, who's one of the actors, has said that making this film changed his life for the good.
Really?
Yeah, and made him a better person.
Wow.
Which makes you think about how intense and emotionally, challenging that must have been for everyone involved.
Right. And he and the rest of the cast, they really went through it to prepare for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 weeks of boot camp, shaved heads, matching tattoos.
Call on me!
Yeah.
Which apparently there's a moment in the film that refers to that.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, they really committed to this project in a way that you don't always see.
Absolutely. And there's also this really personal connection woven into the film because it's dedicated to Elliot Miller, one of the SEALs from this mission, who suffered a traumatic brain injury and has no memory of the events.
Wow.
So in a way, this film becomes his voice, his way of showing his kids what happened.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
It is. And Mendoza has actually said that he hopes the film will help people not forget about the realities of war. But he also makes a point of saying, soldiers don't decide to go to war.
Right.
You're answering a call.
Yeah.
Which I think is important to remember.
It is, yeah.
Now, the early reactions to this film, they all seem to really point to this being a very intense and powerful experience. Words like brutal, harrowing, emotionally powerful, those are being thrown around a lot.
A lot.
It does not sound like a light watch.
No, not at all. This is, this is going to be heavy.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the cast that's bringing this story to life. We've got Charles Melton, Difero Woonitai, who's actually playing Ray Mendoza.
Oh, wow.
Kit Connor, Joseph Quinn, Will Poulter, Cosmo Jarvis as Elliot Miller, Michael Gandolfini. I mean, the list goes on.
That's a great cast.
Really impressive group.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine for Difero Woonitai, playing a real person, the co-director of the film, no less, must have come with a lot of pressure to get it right.
Totally, to honor that story, yeah. And, I mean, not just creating a character, but embodying someone who's right there on set with you.
Right, that's got to be, I can't imagine.
Very intense, yeah.
So you mentioned the early reactions, being very intense. But what are the critics actually saying?
I mean, we're seeing words like brutal, realistic, even horrifying.
Intense, brutal, and harrowing, unflinching, immersive, visceral, and one person even said shattering, relentless, and utterly devastating.
Yeah, this is not a lighthearted movie.
No, this is, very, very different. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of praise for the realism, obviously. The sound design is supposed to be incredible, really puts you in that space.
Yeah.
And people are really highlighting the performances as well.
Which makes sense, right, with the level of commitment that they all had.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people are pointing out that it doesn't romanticize war in any way,
Definitely not.
which again is something you don't always see.
No, and someone even mentioned this as like the, quote, best use of call on me ever.
Okay, I'm really intrigued now. I need to see this.
Yeah, you and me both.
But yeah, it sounds like more than anything, it's being talked about as an experience rather than just a movie.
Right, and I think that really goes back to that real-time structure, right?
Yeah.
That you're really there in it with them.
That 95 minutes.
Yeah, it's relentless.
That entire mission.
You're like dropped into the heart of combat.
You're right there with them.
Yeah.
So, which leads, obviously to the question, is this an anti-war movie?
Yeah.
And both Garland and Mendoza have kind of weighed in on that.
Yeah, and Garland has said that he doesn't think you can show war, really show the brutality of it, without it being anti-war.
Right.
And Mendoza said that if you watch this movie and you think war is awesome, then there's something wrong with you.
But he also makes that important point about, soldiers not choosing to go to war. They're answering a call.
And that's something that's often overlooked, I think.
And Difero Woonitai, he also said that this movie definitely didn't make him want to enlist.
So, it's not a recruitment tool.
No. But it seems like it's more about presenting this reality.
Yeah, just showing you what it is and letting you draw your own conclusion.
Okay, well, when can we actually see this movie? It's being released by A24.
Yes.
Here in the U.S. on April 11th, 2025.
Okay.
And in the U.K. on April 18th. It already premiered in Chicago on March 16th.
Very soon.
So very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
So, I mean, it sounds like this is like a very unique and intense film. It's not your typical war movie.
Definitely not.
It sounds very personal, very realistic, and, very much driven by this desire to be truthful.
And honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the takeaway is that with this real-time structure and this emphasis on memory, it really makes you question the stories that we tell about these events.
Yeah, how we remember them.
And how we process them.
Yeah. How does it challenge your understanding of, war and conflict, especially compared to those more traditional war movies
Right.
that we've all seen?
What does it mean for film to say everything is based on memory?
That's a really good question.
Big questions.
Yeah.
That's what we like to do here at Binge Guide, the next show.
Big questions.
Yeah. So for you, the listener, as you think about what to watch next, consider this movie Warfare. How might it change your perspective on war, on conflict, on the stories that we tell about these things? Something to think about.
For sure.
And that's our deep dive on Warfare. For more on the latest movies heading your way, stay tuned to Binge Guide, the next show.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.